Is there anything more excruciating in professional sports than watching your team sitting in the driver's seat, hand on the gear shift, ready to accelerate toward a championship piece, only to have the car stalled and hijacked at the very last second? Welcome back, everyone. We need to have a serious, unfiltered conversation about the heart-stopping drama unfolding in the NHL trade market right now, specifically focusing on the Boston Bruins and the absolute roller coaster of emotions that just took place involving Rasmus Andersson. If you are a Bruins fan, you are likely waking up with a mixture of confusion and valid frustration. If you are a fan of the chaos of the deadline, this is absolute gold. Let's set the stage. We all know the Boston Bruins have been hunting. They haven't just been browsing. They have been aggressively stalking the market for a top 4 right-shot defenseman. This isn't a secret. It is the worst-kept secret in hockey. And for a brief, shining moment this past weekend, it looked like they had their man. According to the heavy hitters in the industry, including Elliotte Friedman, Boston wasn't just interested in Calgary Flames defenseman Rasmus Andersson, they were reportedly leading the race. They were in the driver's seat. Just let that sink in. Friedman, who rarely misses the mark, indicated that contract discussions were happening and were pretty serious. The Bruins were allegedly the only club given permission to speak to Andersson's camp about an extension. This is usually the precursors to a done deal tweet. We were hearing reports, specifically from James Murphy, that the package was substantial. We are talking about Mason Lohrei, a legitimate high-ceiling young defensive prospect, and a 2026 first-round pick. That is not a lowball offer. That is a pushing the chips to the center of the table offer. That is Don Sweeney saying, "We are doing this." But then the rug was pulled. The Vegas Golden Knights, as they always seem to do, swooped in like vultures in the night and closed the deal. Andersson is going to Vegas. Boston is left holding a bag full of assets and a gaping hole on their blue line. We have to look at the historical context here. This feels eerily similar to past deadlines where Boston was linked to major names, hesitated or got outbid by a margin of inches, and had to settle for Plan B or Plan C. Think about the impact of this miss. The Bruins were willing to part with Lohrei. That tells you everything you need to know about how the front office views their current window. They are in win-now mode, but they just struck out on the premier target. The fan reaction right now is split down the middle, and the tension is palpable. On one side, you have the faction of the fan base that is absolutely furious, screaming that management couldn't close the deal when they had exclusive negotiating rights. They feel like the team is wasting the prime years of their core by not landing the big fish. On the other side, you have the prospect huggers who are breathing a massive sigh of relief that Mason Lohrei is still in a Bruins jersey, arguing that the price was too high for a rental or a guy who might not move the needle enough to guarantee a cup. But the reality is undeniably harsh. Boston identified a critical need, identified the perfect player to fill it, offered a premium package, and still lost. This sets a dangerous tone as we march toward March 6th. The pressure on Don Sweeney has just skyrocketed from high to stratospheric. So, where do the Boston Bruins go from here? And how does this failed transaction ripple across the rest of the Atlantic Division? We have to analyze the fallout, because the market does not wait for anyone to mourn a lost trade. The Bruins signaled their intent. By putting Lohrei and a first-rounder in play, they have effectively tipped their hand to every other general manager in the league. Everyone now knows Boston is desperate and willing to pay a premium. That is a dangerous position to be in negotiation-wise. The names remaining on the board are not Rasmus Andersson. We are looking at potential pivots like a reunion with Dougie Hamilton from New Jersey. But let's look at the analytics and the cap implications there. Hamilton comes with a massive anchor-weight contract and a trade list that makes navigating a deal a nightmare. Is that really the answer? Or do they pivot to safer, less impactful options like Luke Schenn from Winnipeg or Connor Murphy from Chicago? If they go the Schenn or Murphy route, we have to be honest, that is a massive downgrade from Andersson. Andersson is a puck-moving, minute-munching catalyst. Schenn and Murphy are sturdy stay-at-home types. Acquiring them is like going to a dealership to buy a Ferrari and driving off in a reliable, used pickup truck. It fills the spot, sure, but it doesn't change the dynamic of your race. If the Bruins fail to land a true top-4 right-shot defenseman, their ability to transition the puck out of the defensive zone under playoff pressure remains a glaring weakness. We have seen this movie before in April and May. Boston gets hemmed in, cannot clear the zone cleanly, and eventually crumbles. Without that upgrade, are they truly contenders or just pretenders with a good regular season record? Now, let's shift gears entirely and look north to Montreal, where a fascinating and potentially explosive situation is brewing with the Canadiens and Patrik Laine. While Boston is trying to buy, Montreal is in a strange limbo. Laine has been sidelined since mid-October with that core muscle surgery, effectively a ghost for most of the season. In his absence, something unexpected happened. The Canadiens' offense started clicking. The young guns stepped up, the chemistry solidified, and the team found an identity. Now, Laine is on the verge of returning, and it creates a problem of abundance that is giving Kent Hughes sleepless nights. Where does Patrik Laine fit? This isn't NHL 24, where you just slot the highest overall rating into the first line and win. Real hockey relies on chemistry and flow. The Montreal Gazette's Stu Cowan brings up a brilliant point. You can't bury a guy like Laine in the bottom six. He needs minutes, he needs touches, and he needs the power play to be effective. But if you force-feed him minutes to showcase him for a trade, do you disrupt the development of the kids who have been carrying the load? It is a high-wire act. There is a growing belief among insiders like Dan Rosen that Laine is essentially being prepared as a luxury trade chip. The strategy seems to be get him healthy, put him on the top line, park him on the left circle on the power play, let him rip a few one-timers, and hope a desperate team bites before the deadline. But what if he looks rusty? What if he disrupts the locker room vibe? This is the analysis we need to focus on. Laine's value is practically a distress asset right now. If Montreal plays this wrong, they are stuck with a massive cap hit for a player who doesn't fit their long-term rebuild timeline. But if they play it right and Laine scores 5 goals in his first 10 games back, suddenly he becomes the most intriguing wild card on the market, maybe even for a team like the Boston Bruins? Okay, that is a stretch, but in this league, stranger things have happened. As we barrel toward the trade deadline, the narratives in Boston and Montreal offer a perfect study in contrasts. One team desperate to add, the other calculating the perfect moment to subtract. For the Bruins, the clock is ticking louder than ever. Missing out on Andersson isn't just a disappointment. It is a tactical failure that requires an immediate and decisive response. They cannot afford to stand pat. If they enter the playoffs with the current blue line configuration, knowing that they almost had a game changer, the psychological weight on that locker room will be immense. Management needs to find a way to pivot without panic buying. We have seen teams panic after missing their primary target and overpay for a lesser asset. Think of the consolation prize trades of history that set franchises back years. Don Sweeney has to thread a needle in a hurricane right now. He needs to find a top-4 defenseman who can move the puck without having the luxury of the Andersson plan. If he pulls a rabbit out of the hat, he's a genius. If he settles for a depth piece and the Bruins bounce in the first round, the calls for a front office overhaul will be deafening. In Montreal, the Patrik Laine saga is about to reach its climax. This is more than just a player returning from injury. This is an asset management masterclass or disaster. In the making, the next 3 weeks are an audition, not just for Laine, but for the Canadiens' coaching staff to prove they can integrate a star talent without breaking the team spirit. If Laine comes back and lights the lamp, the phone lines in Montreal will melt. If he struggles, the Canadiens might have to hold on to him as an expensive depth piece, effectively kicking the can down the road to the summer. The voice of the fan in Montreal is fascinating right now. Half the city wants to see the pure talent of Laine unleashed, dreaming of a 40-goal scorer rising from the ashes. The other half is terrified that his return will stifle the growth of the younger core or ruin the tank for a better draft pick. Here is the bottom line, folks. The NHL is a results business, and moral victories don't count in the standings. Boston getting close to Andersson means nothing if they don't find a solution. Montreal having a healthy Laine means nothing if they can't monetize that asset or fit him into the puzzle. I want to hear from you, because this is where the debate gets heated. Bruins fans, be honest. Are you relieved you kept Mason Lohrei, or are you sick to your stomach that the team missed out on a premier defenseman? And Habs fans, what is the verdict on Laine? Do you showcase him and trade him to the highest bidder? Or do you keep him and try to make it work? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a Real debate going. Don't forget to smash that like button if you want us to keep tracking these rumors hour by hour. I'll see you in the next one.